have a leak. And what you would do is lose air.
Alright, that's Space is Fake, AF, Chief Crow. You can find that track and all the other tracks that we play at infiniteplanesociety.com. Click the music link. Wherever you are, DLive, Twitch, YouTube, wherever, just say hello in the chat. Just trying to get a head count here. I don't want to get too far into the weeds here until we're, I don't know, 33 strong. Do we have, how many domestic terrorists are in the room right now? I see 17. Okay, let's just go ahead and get started. This is a big deal. This is a very, very, very big deal. You thought Starman was a screw up. Well, it was, but it was easy, I think, to distract people from how bad it was because there wasn't enough for us to go off of. We have no basis for comparing it to anything else. So it's the first time you've ever seen a car in space. How do you prove it's fake? You can make your arguments, but these people are believers and they see the images, they're convinced. But this is different. What we have today, I think, is an opportunity to really expose what a hoax that SpaceX is. And what we're going to go over right now is actually going to expose that the entire Mars 2020 project is not going to happen. It's a scam. He just announced it, Mars 2020, and I'm like, oh no. He's going to compete with the Chinese and they're going to ramp this thing up, and soon all my brainwashed friends are going to be carted off to the Martian gulags. But no, it's not going to happen. Not if this gets out. So this is Spacex 19, their 19th resupply. So it's CRS19. Okay, so they're having, I guess, 20 missions to resupply NASA. This would be the 19th out of the 20. And this is one of these launches that delivers supplies, essential supplies, to the International Space Station. And by essential supplies, obviously we mean monkey costumes, guitars, stuff to make peanut butter and jelly. But this time there was something else. Milky Smooth says, I was just about to go night-night when I got the notification. Yeah, I'm glad you're up for this. You need to see this before you go to sleep. This is a big deal. Okay, so here they are about to launch what, of course, we know these are balloons. These are cylindrical blimps. They're airships. It's not accurate to call them these things balloons, although it's funny. But in truth, they're blimps. And they're being pushed up. Usually, I think it might be with jet propulsion, but I kind of doubt that because that might jeopardize it. I think there might be something else involved. I think it mostly is, well, we can debate that later. Because these days, I think it's more CGI stuff done in the studio than stuff done actually out there using special effects. And that's why some of these new launches look so fake that even Joe Rogan will be watching a launch. I saw this video where Joe Rogan is watching a launch and he has no idea whether what he's watching is real or not. And he's saying, hey, is it real? The other guy says, yeah, and he says, why does it look so fake? Just, he was caught off guard. And funnily enough, recently Joe was tricked as to whether or not a Porsche was real. He couldn't tell. So this is SpaceX CRS9 live. And just a normal launch for the most part. That is normal and fake, everything you'd expect. You have some stooge who doesn't know that this is not really going to this magical realm called outer space. Of course, SpaceX, double entendre here, you're looking at the obelisk of the Earth God, and his conjugal visit with the sky goddess is in fact Spacex, and that's where they have the conception of the sun for the next day. So here we're watching the launch. Just notice how slow it goes. You know, believe it if you want, but like this to me looks so fake. This looks like Nintendo. Like this looks like that one game. I think it was it Battleship? I mean, I'm not a video game player, but I remember this one game where it was point of view from the periscope and you would go around shooting Russian subs, and it looks about this real. I mean, look at that. Minus the corny sound effects, does this look like anything other than just bad graphics? It's like Power Rangers level. Like, this is not good. But we're allowed to criticize it. In countries where I think you're not allowed to criticize the media so openly, their graphics aren't as good because they don't really have the same high standards. I mean, this looks corny compared to the Netflix science fiction. And that's a problem. It's a problem that there's a discrepancy between how realistic science fiction appears today versus how fake the science so-called reality is today. But now this, what's coming up here, this is what's going to bring it all down. And I find it really interesting. So let me go ahead before we go on. I don't know if this is intentional. I don't know if this is meta script, but there's something else going on here, I believe. So we're talking about the SpaceX rocket right now, and I'm going to show you the part that gives the whole thing away as a hoax. Right here at, we're getting close. So we're at T 57 seconds and climbing. And I'll give you the link to the video if you want it. I'll post it on my blog. I'll send it to you if you're on Patreon. So here it's going into the tilt. And in my debate with Red's rhetoric, I discussed how, yes, it tilts and then it falls into orbit. But we have footage of the Soyuz rocket. It's actually a time lapse where it goes straight from Earth into space with no tilt. But from the ground it has a tilt. Day Raven says, Musk told reporters that if you look closely, you can tell it's real because it looks so fake. Oh yeah, definitely. But here, we're not quite to the point I want to show you. So this is it. Now here we are I'm at the 42-minute mark, so we're getting very close. So you can see we're in outer space. So we're actually up there. And that's the ball Earth and everything. Now here on the right side, and you have to look closely, and I just saw it scurry in. And there it is. I'm pointing my mouse at something. My cursor, excuse me. Okay, I did see something scurry across the top of this rocket here, this engine, and it moved from the top to about a quarter of the way across it. And I'm keeping the mouse in this position because what we're seeing here is clearly a rodent. There it is. Oh my God. That is a damn rodent. And I can see the ears. I was talking to a friend about this, how when I was a kid, we had rodents in the backyard, and I had a BB gun. I had a bowl cut. And I remember taking out a few mice, right? And so I know how they move. And I see a mouse right here. Like if I don't know. Look, this is a damn mouse. There's no other way of putting it. And this is on. Oh, this has got to be a joke. Olsen space balloons, 9,700. I'm sorry, almost 10,000 subs. His channel's called Olsen's Space Balloons. He doesn't mean space balloon in the sense that we mean it, but there's a damn rodent. This is an actual SpaceX rocket launch. That is a damn rodent. Like, goodbye, Elon Musk. Hang it up. Like, you've been debunked. Nobody's going to freaking Mars. Not even the Chinese. Like, you can't really stop this without shutting down the internet. This mouse could bring it all down. And one of the reasons why I think this might be significant, there it goes again, is his last big stunt was that car in space. And on the dashboard, it said, "Don't panic." You remember that? Don't panic. Well, that comes from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is about the world coming to an end. So obviously, don't panic, go to Mars. The world's coming to an end. Right? So if you read about this particular story, it pretty much begins when you find out, here we go, it has to do with mice. It has to do with mice. Let me go right to it. There's a few other things here. Okay, here we go. Yeah, okay, they disguise themselves. So they're a hyper-intelligent pan-dimensional being who commissioned the Earth in the first place, and they disguise themselves as mice. Anyway, it's just kind of funny because the mice are sort of the ones that are precursors to the world being brought down. Like when he sees behind the scenes, it's like, oh, they've been controlling it the whole time. It's kind of this little plot line. And so the mice figuring into the story here kind of fits with the don't panic thing. And of course, another part to this movie is this focus on the meaning of life having to do with the number 42, which makes zero sense. But in this context, it does. There's a number of things having to do with this meteor that's supposed to kill us that Elon Musk is always talking about, Apophis 42-999. So I see this. I see Don't Panic. I see Musk with the fear porn about rocks from the sky having to go to Mars 2020. He just announced it, Mars 2020. Got to get out of here. Don't panic. This is like a scene out of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And so I just think it's kind of funny. I mean, if this is some type of a prank, I don't know. Maybe, but it does have some significance, poetic justice. If this brings down the whole fraud, a mouse. Look at that. That's a mouse on the outside of this thing. I mean, it survived the thermosphere. It doesn't need to breathe. It's not wearing a suit. It's not on the inside. This is a freaking mouse. It's not a possum. It's a mouse. Somebody... Everywhere for the rats. Dayraven says UFO buff spotted Mars rat. Oh yeah, I mean look, anytime they take a picture, like they see a squirrel on Mars, people are like, oh, there's aliens. No, it's not on Mars. So I don't know. Does anyone else have an answer for what this could possibly be? So let me go ahead and give you a close-up. A number of people have put this in a, here we go, this is a great one. This is Spirit World. So if you go to Float, I highly recommend this channel. The easiest way to get to this channel is to follow the people that I follow. I have a highly curated list. So this is Spacex CRS19. Remember that. CRS19. Tim Osman says it's all fake and CGI, but they put a mouse in. Well, you can defend this if you like, but we're just looking at it.
Stage 2 continues on nominal trajectory.
Stage 2 continues on nominal trajectory. Okay, watch it.
Again, we use that term nominal. That essentially just means that we're within the expected and appropriate range where we should be. So that.
Okay, he's explaining the use of the term nominal. And there's the mouse.
All that means is that everything's going toward plan. This essentially just means that we're within the.
This pretty much guarantees that this part of it isn't faked in a pool. Because if this was a pool, the mouse would have drowned. Like I would expect a goldfish or a scuba diver. So what I'm thinking here is maybe on Saturdays, Musk pulls his Tesla Roadster out of the garage and then he puts his little toy rocket out there because it's obviously not that big. Like this looks like low budget. I'm sorry. Now, Tim Osman says, streaming 480p on my 4K TV. I see nothing. Milky Smooth says, rats can breathe in space. Well, I'll give you some links here in just a moment, but let's continue. Because Snopes hasn't commented yet. That is moving like a damn mouse. I count 1, 2 ears, conical head. I can see the eyes. I'll tell you what, this looks realer than Jaren's ISS transit. This looks realer than the garbage that Glowbusters passes off as real. This is a real mouse, not a fake ISS transit.
We're within the expected and appropriate range.
There it is again. So look, if Glowbusters and Jaren try to milk this for views, make sure you comment in their comment section, hey guys, what about the fake ISS transits?
This essentially just means that we're within the expected and appropriate range where we should be.
It even has a shadow. The mouse has a shadow, and the shadow is shaped like a mouse. I thought it could be a reflection. I've been looking at this thing for 3 hours. I've been debating whether to go live or not. And so I chugged some coffee and I was like, yeah, let's just do it tonight. So, people can prepare their damage control, fight the flat earth, Red's rhetoric, and all those other NASA shills can figure out how to cover this up.
This essentially just means that we're within the expected and appropriate range where we should be. So that all that we
Wow, zoomed in. That is a mouse. That's a mouse. It's not a smudge. No, it's not a smudge. This is a mouse.
Research Flat Earth.
Research Flat Earth. The most popular and relevant flat earth meme ever propagated, courtesy of the Infinite Plane Society. Great Alaska says, no, that's a rat. Okay, debunked. Debunked. Elon Musk is legit. It's not a mouse, it's a rat. Let's watch it again.
appropriate range where we should be. So that all that we
See, I'm thinking now it looks like a mouse, honestly. Like the type of mouse you'd have in a shed. And they can live in anything. If you've ever, you clean out a shed, like this is a mouse. So obviously this rocket is not in space. That's the only thing. It doesn't mean the Earth is flat. Hashtag Mousegate, exactly. Doesn't mean the Earth is flat just because this is fake. You don't have to make that leap, and if you try, you'll meet with resistance. All we're doing is exposing that Elon Musk, the Martian Pope, is a fraud. And so is SpaceX, and so is so much of what they use, to advance the various narratives, most of it statist. There's a link in the chat if you want it. It's the new Speak Penguin or Die shirt. If you don't know what Speak Penguin or Die means, it basically means that the Flat Earth movement will die as conference earthers, or it will thrive and come to a conclusion by figuring out what the hell Antarctica is. Great Alaska says it does have an animal type movement. That's what I was referring to. It moves like a mouse. Milky Smooth says there's a mammal in space without a suit. Ooh, interesting. 2020, Chinese Year of the Rat. Chinese Year of the Rat. So we went from the Golden Hog, and how many Golden Hoggies did we award? At least 12. Somebody says definitely a rodent. Oh, no doubt. This is a rodent. This is a rodent. Like I said, go to infiniteplaneradio.live if you want to watch this live on Float, and you can get this posting and you can look at it for yourself. It is most definitely a mouse. This is going to be on Snopes tomorrow. This is going to be on Snopes. This is going to be on Metabunk. Somebody call Mick West. All the damage control agents. Mick Toon. I think Red's rhetoric got to deal with this one. Hey man, is this a smudge? We do need to adopt this mouse. Let's watch it one more time. Again, it's CRS19. So you got to ask the people in the ISS, is there a mouse up there? A stowaway? Wait, or does it die? Does this part drop off? Rosie Bear says, where's the footage? Go to really infiniteplanesociety.com. That's really the best way to get all of these links for anybody listening. Go to that website. My daily news updates will post links that are relevant because you're going to want this footage. This is the end. This is the end of Elon Musk. This is worse than him. What was the last dumb thing he did? He had that indestructible truck and the window broke when he tapped it. He called that one guy a pedo and then defended it, saying that he meant it flippantly, whatever that is. He smoked pot with Joe Rogan. Like, this is just one more thing in a long list of things. I think this is it. This is going to be the thing that brings him down. A rat. He's faking space. He got away with Starman, but we can't let him get away with this. This is too easy. Look, it has a shadow. It has a shadow. Now, if it's a CGI mouse, which it could be, they would have inserted a shadow. So it could be a smudge beneath it. So Red's Rhetoric, you might be able to cling on to that. Like that shadow beneath the mouse could be a smudge. So definitely a mouse. The shadows clearly because there's a spotlight right here. It's very consistent with the angles. Yeah, look, right now, everybody who's on my mailing list will get a breakdown of this with relevant links, and you can download the links, infiniteplanesociety.com, infiniteplaneradio.com, all of it. Thirst for Truth says Elon Musk rat.
Research flat Earth.
Research flat Earth. Rats in space. Like, this has got to be one of their biggest goof ups. I mean, they figured out ways to talk, they kind of talk their way out of the whole bubbles in space. They talk their way out of a lot of the stuff that they've, that we've called out as evidence of hoaxery. They've managed to kind of worm the way out of so much. So it's nice that we finally got them with something that they can't run away from. Sorry, we got you on this one. Like, this has been a back and forth battle. Like, you're faking it, we know you're faking it, but the consensus is on your side. And I think we're going to start to pull it over to this side. I do find it weird that it is the Chinese Year of the Rat, mainly because China was announcing 2020. Musk put it off to the 30s, but now he's saying 2020. And so it's like, well, who's going to plant a flag on Mars, capitalists or commies? And it looks like the commies, now all of a sudden, this discrediting footage comes out. Marty Moose says it does look unusual. I'd like to see a SpaceX explanation for it. SpaceX explanation for it. Well, this is something like, look, bubbles, you could say it's just ice, space ice, it's dust. A shadow of the space station, you could say it's a smudge, and you could just attack the person who says it. Wait, does the mouse die? I want to see what happens to him. Okay, so we're at 47 minutes into the SpaceX CRS19 launch. I'm not referring to a video of my own. This is their original upload. And it's at 43 minutes in, but what I'm looking at here is I want to watch what happens to see if at some point we can see when it dies. Or does it climb up back in? Does it have any friends? And that's supposed to be real. That's just CGI. This is so bad. I'm going to open phones because I'd like to hear some of your opinions about this. Defeat Jihadi says, DLive has been sold to a Chinese entrepreneur. I like that. I mean, I'm not against it at all. Kind of a side note, but I found a number of our t-shirts. Like, we have these designs from like 2 years ago with our penguin in the flat earth map or whatever. Some of our designs are showing up on Alibaba. So I do drop shipping through my store. And sometimes I'm actually sourcing my own goods from Chinese knockoffs that actually look better than my stuff usually. And they're better with the meta tags. So I usually rely on Chinese entrepreneurs quite a lot. Anyway, let's get back on topic here. Okay, again, SpaceX CRS19. We're at 43 minutes in. And we're going to watch this mouse again walk across the rocket. There it is. Man, this is so bad. Tim Osman says, I don't know what to say about that at the moment. Elon Musk lied. They're faking space. Now, here's the problem, okay? So you may want to dismiss this and say, okay, well, maybe this guy's just a bad actor, but NASA's cool. Well, I have to ask you, what happens when this thing goes to the space station? At what point did it cease becoming fake and become real again? I mean, it's either real or it's fake. And if this is fake, then the space station is fake.
To slow itself down before hitting the dense part of the Earth's atmosphere. Lastly is the landing burn, which happens just before touchdown to take the booster softly down.
Okay, I'm turning the speed down. And so again, we're at 43 minutes and 16 seconds into the SpaceX CRS19 Dragon launch. This is the 19th out of 20 refuels that they're doing. This is the type of stuff that the Mandela effect is meant to distract you from. They don't want you holding to objective reality. They don't want you parsing the facts with logic and reason. They want you distracted. No distraction here. We're hyper-focused. Here we go. Here comes the mouse. 43 minutes, 25 seconds. And based on the size of the mouse relative to the rest of this engine, I'm going to have to say that the model that they're using is very small. Tim Osman says, whatever it is, it stops and it stays there, but right when it cuts back, there's something smaller that crawls past. Yeah, it's his girlfriend. There's like a few of them here, I think. Oh yeah, that is definitely a mouse. Unbelievable. This is just sloppy work. I mean, look, how much money does he have and he can't afford some? I mean, this is great though. I mean, I'm glad that this is happening, but wow, this was preventable. And I think it's really kind of ironic considering this whole story of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe being tied into this car in space thing, and now this, a mouse bringing down SpaceX, right when he announces Mars 2020. Does anyone here actually believe what they're seeing here is a real rocket going into space now that you can actually see that there's a mouse crawling all over it? It's stationary. That's the main thing to take out of this. It's stationary. At a minimum, you have to admit, this means that it's stationary. There's no movement here. There's like a fan blowing on this or something. Okay, so let me go ahead and open phones. 505-510-4226. And the topic is Mouse in Space debunks the Mars 2020 project that Elon Musk just announced. I mean, he just announced this. And I'm like, oh, he's stepping it up because China. They're ramping up the space race. That's obviously what this was. And so, as you can see here, though, it's not going to work. You're welcome to defend it, though. If any of you here think that, yes, a mouse can survive the harsh environment of space, feel free to call in. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, what's up, man? Timmy.
Okay, so what is your initial assessment about this apparent mouse on the outside of this rocket that's supposed to be in space?
We got to really break this down because it kind of goes deep here, but I couldn't see it. Obviously, you're not streaming in 1080p or 4K, which is okay. You're giving the actual link, and so I checked it myself and was skeptical, of course, at first, but the movement is quite odd to me, and let's just really quickly talk about, could an animal or a mouse or something be on the outside of that, just on the globe model, just on what we know of what they say about the globe model, a snake or a puff adder or something, whatever is crawling across, I'm not really sure. A glitch, it's pound mouse gate at the moment, but it's not possible with the heat that's probably coming off that area right there, first off, but also there's a lot of things wrong with that. I'm watching it right now, actually, on the TV. I'm not really sure what to make of it.
This is
this is
bad not just for Musk, Because if this isn't some type of a joke that was done somewhere along, which could be, this could be sabotage.
Yeah, yeah.
He's got the talent. He's got the CGI experts there. If they wanted to mess with him, and that's why I thought this smacks of an inside joke because it seems to reference this Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which was about mice taking over the world, and his last jump or rocket had that, or the car had the "Don't Panic" thing, referenced the same movie. So I thought this could possibly be a joke that they inserted a mouse into it. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I mean, the problem is with some of these claims is that this technology, as far as some of these things we don't know, let's just take it back just a moment. We heard of the rocket hitting the dome a long time ago. And then some people looked into that claim and they said, no, that's actually the yo-yo de-spin device that actually deactivates the spin of that rocket, and it wasn't actually hitting the dome. And then we get into the logistics of a rocket hitting a hard barrier and not fucking blowing up, first off. And so I don't know if there's some kind of a, and this is kind of wild to me actually seeing this and saying this, but some kind of a locking device or something that goes across, but it looks too, like animal movement is all to me. So I'm just kind of speculating as far as coming to this right now.
My Occam's razor, like I know what you mean about the rocket hitting the dome, and David Weiss still pushes that one. In fact, on Mike's next show, Mad Mike Hughes, his next radio show, he's actually going to be addressing that because he knows the person behind that launch, and he's going to explain the mechanism that gives the appearance that it hits something. So he's going to personally debunk that this week because I'm totally not for false positives. So if I was to look at this as a, assuming it's all real, and Musk isn't pulling any kind of shenanigans, I would have to assume that this is some kind of deep sabotage and that's a deep fake mouse made out of CGI put there somewhere, maybe during the live stream by an employee, a CGI overlay. That's the only thing I can imagine that would explain it.
Look, I must say, kind of premise that I'm a firm believer that there is something what we call space, a low atmospheric pressure area above Earth. We do know that there's a pressure gradient. It gets less and less and less, and people say, "Why? How can you have a pressure gradient or a vacuum next to a pressured Earth or whatever?" Well, we have, a varying bar of degree continuing to go up that we can actually test here on Earth. Continues to be so. That's why planes can't fly. As far as 747s and stuff like that, high, like they can't go 80, 98. There's a ceiling there. So I do believe that there's what we call space is just a very, very low atmospheric pressure up there. And I also do believe, I use Sirius XM, I use different kind of GPS applications where you go under a bridge and your satellite gets cut off. So I'm not under the belief that it's all radio towers, because this is every time I go under a bridge or I'm at a gas station or something like that, it does get cut off. It does get blocked. Now, I also went across the Bonneville Salt Flats getting XYZ Cartesian coordinates on very, very high, very expensive equipment and measuring basically, the radius of the Earth. And we were pinging off of 17 to 19 different satellites, GPS, as far as what we have in the United States, and GLONASS, which is Russian satellites. So I do believe in satellites. But what you show here, I'm not really sure what to think at this point. I can't imagine really what that could be besides Mousegate.
Okay, so basically, for everyone else who's listening, you have no reason from your own observational data to suspect that we're being lied to about the basic nature of things as far as the ball, low Earth orbit, and space as they describe it. So looking at this, it obviously presents a problem. It doesn't necessarily change anything about, in my view, it doesn't conclude. It doesn't necessarily lead to anything. It doesn't therefore mean that Earth is flat. But this to me means one of two things. Either SpaceX is faking a lot of stuff, or some employee, or maybe I'm thinking a Chinese spy, sabotaged. Maybe it's a communist working for him. I don't know. What do you think about sabotage?
It's kind of low on the likelihood, and I do see that the Outer Light did, on a kind of a side note, really quickly, did have a video that said basically 30% of millennials want to have communist country, basically, which is a very, very big side note here, but it's kind of going along with what you've been saying as far as the past several months. But this is the problem with what I see, is that there's a lot of stupid, ridiculous flat Earth claims, and they say it's CGI, and they say that they're using a wide-angle lens, they're using a GoPro-style lens. So logistically looking at it, it's either pretty much one or the other as far as what we're looking at, let's just say in a regular launch. So you shouldn't say that it's CGI plus they're using a wide-angle lens. Either it's CGI or they're using a wide-angle lens on the flat Earth. So in this case, what are they actually doing? So they're CGIing all of the Earth to look like a globe, and they have some model that looks like it's a rocket going into space, or they're actually using a wide-angle lens on a model and a little bit of CGI in the background, perhaps. But even at that, you wouldn't use a wide-angle lens in conjunction with CGI.
That's a good point.
What do we do? What is actually happening here? Are they actually shooting something into space with a mouse or something living, walking around where there's extremely high temperature rockets and very low pressure? That's very unlikely. So this causes basically more questions than there is answers to me.
Right, it does. And to me, Occam's razor says this is either George Lucas level Star Wars technology, where they basically are hanging a model against a screen and then the camera's in the room positioned somewhere, and it's some old warehouse and whoever set up the scene didn't clear it for mice. It's either that or it's in space and some employee added the CGI rat or a CGI rat on top of it in order to make Musk look bad, because this is going to make Musk look bad, I think.
Well, number one, this is SpaceX CRS19 live from a guy named OLHZN Space Balloons with 4,000 views. So one part of research I would like to do is actually look at the CRS19 from official sources, quote unquote official sources, and see if we see that first off. And if we see that, then there's, it calls into question, well, this is actually official documentation, official video, and therefore something seems to be happening that seems to defy what we know of as space. Now, another thing is these rockets aren't the size of 10 rats lined up or 5 rats lined up end to end. So, this is a very, very large rocket booster that we're seeing something go across the screen. And like I said, they keep cutting back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. They cut after that whole thing that you brought up, they cut back to the other booster, and then they cut back, and then you can kind of see something else that is very much smaller than, the mouse or the rat that's in question. And it seems to run across it. Now, I haven't gone through all of the video, but it does seem that feature, as far as what we're calling a possible rat or mouse or whatever it is, seems to stay where it had stopped. So either there was a mouse that, was unlucky and ended up getting launched into space and was running across a rocket booster, and died and stayed there, or there's some other explanation. But
Well, if that's
at
the
this
case,
point,
okay, if that's the case, then this is why I'm saying it's going to go viral one way or the other. If a real mouse went up to space and then he roasted, that's going to go viral because a mouse was a stowaway and got fried, kind of a martyr. And then, of course, if this is sabotage, if the uploader on YouTube added this, well, that's a scandal, a minor scandal, but scandalous. And then if it was a Chinese spy, saboteur, communist working at SpaceX who did it with CGI, that's a big story. So this is going to be talked about. I'm going to personally email Mick West here in a few minutes, and I'm going to let him know that Mars 2020 is not going to happen, in my opinion.
well, I mean, 2020, give me a break. But you can get him on Skype too. I usually get better responses from him on Skype. And he told me when I had a chat with him that it was perfectly reasonable, and for me to do a test on Bonneville salt flats of an explosion of great magnitude, and to have a passport, basically, or a book like a passport, come out unscathed, fairly unscathed, as what happened in 9/11. So, I tried to talk to him about a lot of conspiracies, because we're conspiracy theorists, that have actually come out to be true, that most, mainstream cuck boys don't actually know at the end of the day. But I would like to see his explanation of this, because he'll have to do an explanation if we kind of hound him about that. I will show him the video. I'll give him a timestamp. You can give him a timestamp, and we'll see what metabunk.org comes up with. If it's some kind of locking device, if it's some kind of a puff of smoke or a smudge on the camera, perhaps. We'll see. I mean, this is a thing. A lot of people probably think, because I've been pitching what I feel is the truth of the reality that we live in for so many years, that I'm just going to go along with the mainstream narrative. This wouldn't have come across my site if it wasn't for you. I couldn't see it at first, obviously. Then I looked into it, and it seems as though this doesn't match up with anything that I can actually explain. So I'm not going to say that space is fake, that the Earth is flat. I'm not going to conclude that. But I'm going to say that this is a very anomalous activity that happened on a supposed launch, and we'll have to look further into the actual video and stuff like this. But this doesn't make sense to the worldview that I purport, I suppose you could say.
Right, and the reason why I want to drag people like Mick West into it and Snopes is because these are the people who are going to knee-jerk defend the mainstream in the face of contradictions. Like you brought up the passports that survived the 9/11 thing. It's like they will default to the mainstream when it's clearly impossible. So I want to know, will they face the facts here and honestly appraise what we're showing them? And here's the trick, though. If you were to show them this clip and say, hey, look, I'm testing out my CGI skills, and I added a mouse into this footage, he would laugh and say it was great. And he would admit, yeah, that's a realistic mouse, and you could probably press him for details. But if you were to show him the same footage as it's contextualized here, he'll be on guard against it, and he won't even see the mouse. Like, I think this may be an Emperor's New Clothes type of thing, where a lot of people will not want to see what their eyes are actually processing.
What do you think of me not saying anything to him and other people not saying anything to him, and you saying that? Because I think that's an interesting kind of mental exercise, where you say, hey, I've been working on After Effects for a while. Look at this mouse that I implanted on this video, CRS19, or whatever it is, CRS19, I think. And just ask him, like, how well did I do?
Yeah.
And see if he's like, you did wow, that's interesting, or that's a great job. Yeah, that looks like a mouse kind of thing. And then actually say no, and then give him actual videos and timestamps of where it was done and have that documented.
Exactly. And the thing is, we can't lose with that approach because you go back to the source. If you look at SpaceX's CRS19 launch footage, you're going to see it. So I want this to come to light, and I want Elon Musk to rout the communist saboteur working in his company doing this CGI work, or I want to get to the bottom of it one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, I have a hard issue with kind of the logistics of them actually spending this much money for giant fireworks to continue the lie, supposedly, of the globe Earth. Like, when you come from, how much I've tested. I mean, I was out at the Great Salt Lake last weekend, actually, and I was 2 weeks before that at Stansbury Island doing observations, and nobody's seen them, but I had them for myself, and I'm like, wow, this is everything I've ever done times 5. Like, this is exactly what is supposed to be on what we were purported to be on. And you can have 99 different excuses. We're about to get to 100. Dearth actually the other day said the 98th different excuse. It was some kind of atmospheric redundancy zone or something like that. But my goal was to get to 100 when we're at like 30, and we're almost there. We're at 98. So to me, the Earth, with the 2 celestial points and all this stuff that I talked about for years that I don't even need to go into, does match up to a globe Earth. But when we get into some anomalies that you guys point out, and this would not happen if it weren't for flat Earth. There would not be people scrutinizing this kind of video that we get all the time from these agencies at all. Like, people would see something moving across it, and wouldn't even question it because it is part of the mainstream. And so we have this kind of mainstream cuckism of probably 99.9% of population where they're completely blinded by the right-left paradigm, number one, but then both the right and left paradigm purport this kind of stuff to us, so it's auto-believe. And that's kind of why I go into why I respect, to a certain extent, the auto-hoaxers compared to the auto-believers, because there's no critical thought into auto-believing. Auto-hoaxer sounds like auto-disbeliever, which would be no critical thought as well. But then that gets into actually what you guys are about, which is looking into the claims that are made. And that's not happening on the other side. So,
No, I mean, we've been holding the Mandela people to this idea that you can't make claims that have no basis in reality. We have to be able to compare it to reality. And here I am, just comparing what I'm observing to reality. And this is why we've been so hard on the Mandela effectees, because, or the people who say they've seen Bigfoots or unicorns, is they're trying to bring in these claims that they can't justify with any sorts of evidence whatsoever. I'm only focusing on what we can all mutually observe and agree. Objective reality is showing what appears to be a mouse. But we, have to be careful about jumping to too many conclusions too fast. I just want to figure out first, can we all agree at least that this clearly moves like a mouse, and then what are the possible answers for it?
Well, I think it was very important for you to talk to, what is his name? Maybe you can refresh me here in a moment when you remember. He's nearing 50 years old, and I kind of, right when he talked to you, I talked shit about him, Flatterfucker. He literally said that there's no evidence to you for Mandela effect. There's no evidence. It's kind of just upon what we remember things as. I literally, with my girlfriend tonight, actually just watched the second, and I thought it was the third Star Wars that this happened in. But it was the second Star Wars where he said, "No, I am your father," after he had cut off his hand. And so these things were like, we remember things. Well, I thought it was in the third Star Wars. Should I start creating a conspiracy that it was actually in the third Star Wars that this happened in? No, I just misremembered. And that's the thing, is we're going to create a conspiracy out of our misremembrances. And I think you and John LeBon have broken it down probably the best. And I would say you specifically, and he helped, he in my mind at least, kind of break down this whole conspiracy. And I disagree with John vehemently. I've known him for like 6 or 7 years, vehemently about many things that he says. The TransAsia plane crash, he still goes back and forth with me about that being a hoax or whatever. I'm like, what is the cui bono? Who benefits from that? Like, what is that? The whole thing with you in space and with flat Earth and all this stuff. I vehemently oppose those ideas, but that's what's great, is that we can come together and actually talk about it. As far as flat Earth globebusters, as far as Mandela and Stavely and all these kind of characters, you are deemed, like Unirock and myself, as a troll. You're just a troll. You're not part of the cult or community, excuse me. And so you're not allowed to talk on my platform. You'll be completely shut off. You'll be called a troll. You'll be completely demeaned to the nth degree. So this is what's different about some of the higher level thinkers in this whole community, in this whole kind of partnership we have here, is that we're not going to rush to judgment. We're not trying to create a cult to believe the things that we do.
Yeah, I don't want to walk myself past a point that I can't defend it, to where I have an emotional attachment to something, and that's what we're seeing with many religious views and superstitions and bigotries. There are many things that people emotionally attach to, and funnily enough, yeah, some people are attached to this Mandela effect, and they vilify people who don't believe in it as non-believers instead of addressing our statements about it. And all we're saying is, there are other explanations that might be more rational, and you're supposed to go with the best possible explanation that you have, or the most likely, and they've dispensed with logic and reason. And where John LeBon came into this was looking at the community, which he's familiar with, and how it's evolved, and now this new thing being injected into it, which almost looks like, to me, a bandwagon because they ran out of 200 proofs, and now they have 200 Mandela effects to kind of, keep the thing seeming like it's not stale.
It's an anti-mainstream cult, I think, at the end of the day, where anything that goes against, these people are liars. Therefore, they've lied about everything. These people lied to us about the Saudi Arabia or the Middle East bombings, where they had the blue screen in the background. The guy had his helmet on. He said he was getting gas attacked or whatever. Therefore, the Earth is flat, because these same people are telling us that the Earth is a sphere, and it's so far and disconnected from the truth. It's just absurd at the end of the day. So being able to actually connect with people and try, even with you, like, yesterday I had about an hour where I was skipping through this 10-hour thing of the Parkland shooter, where he was in right after that whole fiasco happened, supposedly, or whatever. He had an interview with a detective and all this stuff, and he was sitting there locked up and all this stuff. And I wanted to send you the video where it's like, how do you justify that this is just an acting job? I'm not saying that it's not. I'm not saying that it is. I'm just saying, are you saying that this is all fake and this has to be fake if that was a illegitimate cause that happened or event that happened? So there's other backstories and different things that you can look into where it calls into question your own beliefs, and that's where it really is challenging. And for myself, where I was, 5 years ago, pretty much a little bit over 5 years ago, telling my ex-girlfriend to look into Mark Sargent and look into some of these people that are talking about the flat Earth, because I was not convinced, but I was looking into it, and it was intriguing to me. And so once that happened to me, it tried to, at least over the years, I've tried to break myself of the bias that I've had, a conspiratorial bias or any kind of emotional bias that I have, where, the only thing that I can't really revisit in my own head is something like 9/11. Like, can I ever actually admit that it was just people from caves that came over and did this to us? That's really, really hard. I think I'm like, my bias is so strong with that. I don't think I can do it, but I can look at Sandy books and I can look at all these different things where maybe I was wrong about what I thought at the time, and I can say, hey, I don't know. At the end of the day, I'm not trying to say either way. If you have evidence either way, I'm totally
Well, look,
cool with that.
after Sandy Hook that night, I was 100% convinced it was an MK Ultra trained assassin on some government black budget who ritually sacrificed 26 kids for a number of reasons, terrorism, and then he killed himself. Like, I believe that was the actual story, and the idea of actors and theatrical events portrayed as news to influence the populace, like that was unknown to me for about a year and a half after that. And once I saw through that, I was like, okay, that kind of got me to look at the bigger picture. But at this point, I don't think it's an extraordinary claim to say that the news media fakes things on that level. But generally, they have some ambiguity they can hide behind. Even with the moon landing, people are still debating it 50 years later. But if we had seen a mouse scurrying across the surface of the moon, that would have raised some eyebrows. And so I'm hoping that this little clip isn't lost in the mix here. Do you think this clip can do any real damage if it does show, I don't know, tampering of some kind?
Yeah, I would just push it because it is part of the mainstream narrative. If it's part of the mainstream video, if it's part of the Starman, if it's part of the SpaceX, Tesla, if it's part of a certain launch, heavy launch, or any kind of launch where there's something to call into question that people want to say it's a puff of smoke or some kind of a CGI or a blur effect or whatever. Like it needs to be flushed out. What is the official narrative on what walked or crawled across the screen? Because I can't explain it. It doesn't go with what I believe is to be the case of the Earth and the universe and all that kind of stuff. But it doesn't really bother me as far as it's not a game changer to me. It's just more of that's very peculiar. That doesn't fit what I believe. But I'm a skeptic. I'm a true skeptic. I'm not, and that's why I kind of didn't like the term auto hoaxer until I actually understood it. I mean, at this point, I firmly grasp to, I think you're more right if you auto hoax things than you auto believe things. And I find that most people auto believe things and much, much less people auto hoax things. It's just on the base level of it, not what you think of what you say auto hoax is. Just let's just say auto disbelief.
Well, I'm okay. Like, I'm okay with being wrong. Like, so if I'm automatically jumping to the conclusion, or not jumping to the conclusion, but asserting it could be a hoax, that it's fake until proven real, I'm okay if I'm wrong. If facts contradict it, then I'm like, okay, I was wrong. I jumped the gun. But with the auto believer approach, where it's just total faith, they go with it as though it's true, and they pretty much stick with it. So they're not willing to admit that they're wrong, and that's where, like with the Mandela effectees, they can't admit that they've been tricked. They can't admit that they're wrong. And Mark Twain said it, that it's easier to fool a man than convince him he's been fooled. But I think the approach here should be skepticism. And even now, like, you're skeptical enough of this to recognize, okay, well, there's something there. At least you're questioning it that much. What comes of it, I don't know. I have a feeling this is going to blow up, though, but that's just my opinion because, I don't know. This, I think, is a flub.
Yeah, I mean, you can, and I agree, it would be a flub. But at the same time, like, at a certain point, you have to understand that it would have to be an intentional flub. Because we understand the technology that we have today, where basically, at movies, you're looking at pure CGI, and you think it looks more real than the toys or the little towns or whatever they had in the 1980s. You think that, or as far as most people, you think that looks more real than what was actually real in the past. So I think they're kind of prepping us with this total CGI nonsense of today's, Hollywood, where they can pass these things by, and the people will have no question to it because appears real. It appears real, and it's also being purported by credible sources. And I like that you use the word faith, because I tried to use that, and I don't want to necessarily demean people by saying that, but it is kind of a legitimate truth where you know, to look at a person, I don't know if your viewers or yourself knows, as a person like Brenda Von Ossen, where it's a transsexual guy of like 50 plus years old that literally will auto-believe any credible source. So you have credible sources and you have uncredible sources. And this person just says, well, it comes from Science Magazine. And you've said it before, you've kind of pitched it, where it's like, well, they could tell you that an asteroid hit, or just whatever you've said in the past, where it's just this bizarre thing. And because it's a credible source that says it, well, therefore it's the truth. And I totally know that to be the case. I've witnessed many people that hook, line, and sinker take credible sources as faith. And that's what's interesting about theology and you know, religions and different things, where their book is truth, whereas people in, you know, the future, even the atheists, for the most part, with evolution, and I'm not saying that I disbelieve it. There's a lot of evidence for it, but they just say, well, you know, 97% of scientists say that climate change is real, when they don't actually know the question that was asked. Does climate change happen? Yes, it does. Is it anthropogenic? That's a whole different question. So they didn't ask the right question on purpose, where these people now go around and really they're touching the youth on gun violence, gun regulation.
But this is also about science. The point here is where you also have the majority of people do think that science is just believing what the scientists say, which could mean anything. And so they confuse science with ideology when it's actually a methodology. And so that's, I think, where most people are wrong, is that they have this politicized version of science, and it's super politicized, where left and right wing have different views on literally what's going to happen to the world, like on a day-to-day basis, because of the climate. So yeah, there's a mass ignorance about what science actually is, and I think it's 100% intentional, because they want people to have emotional responses to these claims. And a lot of these scientists, to me, sound like doomsayers at this point.
You went into that, which is exactly what I was about to say. You get it, you touch into it about kind of the doomsday prophecies, as far as, well, let's just say religion for the moment. Religion and the doomsday is always afoot. The kind of futileness, I suppose you could say, of our mortality is what kind of drives a lot of people into religion in the first place, where we can sit on a throne when we meet our inevitability here on Earth. And so when we get into science, well, you know, dinosaurs and all this kind of stuff, I don't see the cui bono, I don't see the benefit, truthfully, of that. But when we get into the climate science, as far as who's going to benefit, there's extreme benefit. And the pharmacies, as far as vaccines and all this kind of stuff, there's huge benefit. And so when people deem people anti-vaxxers or conspiracy theorists, nowadays, I just completely see through that. You are an ideologue. You are basically a terrorist, a fascist terrorist, as far as what you think of, you know, ISIS or whatever. You're just the same. It's a little bit more discreet, I suppose you could say. But at the end of the day, the ideology is there, and people are fed their ideology, and that's why they're ideologues. They continue to purport what they hear from their credible sources, and they don't actually have critical thinking for themselves. And that's what's very interesting in our day. We really can't break people of that. We can't hope to break people of that. They're just going to continue to be the masses, the crowd mentality that we've seen for so many years.
Okay, well, here we are at the edge. We're at the end of 2019. 2020 is the Chinese year of the rat. Last year was the year of the golden hoggy. Do you have any predictions for 2020? Any one or two things with regards to the, we'll just say with the flat Earth community?
I like that, the year of the rat into golden hoggies. The golden hoggies is actually a prestigious award that most people actually don't know that they know about yet. That's an interesting factor that they may perhaps in the future actually come to when they actually come to their senses in a certain sense. But 2019, in my opinion, was the year of censorship. We started seeing that, and that's why I quit YouTube. I'm not interested in putting my voice out there for the robots and the deep learning technology. I'm not interested in that at all. I see where that's going. The deep fakes. I see where that's going. It's only going to get worse and worse. So 2019 was a year of censorship, and YouTube is with this whole new kid thing that's happened, CISPA or whatever it's called. I don't know, but I really don't care. It's only going to further dig a hole for them. They've done very, very bad in the last quarter. They've done very, very bad in the third quarter. And they'll continue to do bad, but I don't see much more out of the conspiracy crowd. I've been here for many, many years, and I feel like when I listen to Stavely, I listen to a lot of people except yourself and John LeBon. You're not giving a pipe dream of once we get enough, 100th monkey effect people to get along with us. We're going to pass peace pipes, and we're going to take down the oligarchs. We're going to take down the technocracy. We're going to take down these communists and fascists. So it's just not going to happen. So stop thinking that. But that's a pipe dream that they continue to pitch, and I know that they will continue to pitch that. Community, we are a community. Stay with the community of thought, and we will, destroy the power structure. And all the while, the power structure is most likely going to continue to pitch through PR groups and think tanks, different types of psyops to make conspiracy theorists look dumber and dumber with stupider and stupider bullshit. So nothing will change as far as the conspiracy crowd. It will continue to pitch its memes, but in the end, I think that they win. I think that they're winning on the front of the children as far as climate science, quote unquote science, and the hoaxes. I think they're just going to win.
I think that's very likely. I think it's very likely. They always have won. They've been winning generation after generation. And I think the only reason why we have any insights we do into the backstage of this thing and even the existence of PSYOPs is because of the internet. And were it not for that, this entire conversation would be so gatekept that I'd be in the position I was in 2012 when I thought Adam Lanza was a mind-controlled, multiple personality killer trained by the government. Like, you had no option but the rabbit trails. So I'm not sure what's going to happen next year, but I think you're probably right about a lot of that. And I left YouTube for the same reason. I have it open there, but I have no need to go back there, and I do not give a damn about their terms of service.
Yeah. I mean, they can continue to shut your channels down. You'll continue to create your own. People who want to find me, as far as in the past, they would find my obscure channels by putting in Tim Osman. If they want to find you, they'll put in Infinite Planes beside it, and you'll pop up. So you'll have a new channel, and within a couple days of you popping a new channel up because you've been censored or whatever, and I hate to use that word truthfully with the flat earthers using it as if they're censored, they will find you. And so they will also find the different avenues that they can find that you will not be censored on, so to speak. And they will find your content. If they're interested in your content, if they're actual non-latent subscribers, they'll actually be there to listen to what you have to say and probably be in the chat too. Probably actually chatting in the chat as people I'm sure are bagging on me in the chat right now. But I would, person like Red Pill Philosophy, just for an example, where they have trolled and done certain things to try to get a bunch of subs, having 205,000 subs gets less views than probably a video that you have on a channel that you just made like 2 months ago or a month ago. So I would rather have people that are interactive, that are in your Discord or want to hear what you want to say, than just have the clout of saying, look, I have 1 million subs, but none of them show up. So
good point. Engagement matters, numbers don't, and that's one of the things I saw as kind of a weakness with some of these channels who are, act like, for example, there was a time where there seemed to be this Game of Thrones where a few people wanted to be boss of Flat Earth, which is absurd. You had Powder Boof and then Dubay and Flat Earth Anus, and they're all just like saying, I'm the boss, I'm the boss, and I'm like, Dubay's writing himself out of history by not going live, because his numbers are really no indication of anything. You don't really know, how many of these people are just curious, how many people are agreeing, how many have questions, and he never went with the live thing. And I think that's kind of why you don't hear about him anymore.
yeah, I mean, I think, like I've said in the past, I forget what year it was, right before he went to Thailand, he received $100,000 for a vaccine payout. Supposedly he had Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is very interesting for somebody that's a yoga guy, that is a person that can bend and contort his body more so than most males can. There's endomorphic, exomorphic types of bodies. He is the kind of body that can basically suck his own D, basically. So at the end of the day, that doesn't make sense. And it does make sense that he put out the meme, and a lot of people bid on it, and he's kind of in the dark nowadays. And once, truthfully, and I would like to hear your take on Patty coming back here, Patty going off the radar, well, I'm just wondering, I said this on Nathan Oakley's right when she left, because of quote-unquote being called a transgender, even though Pete Shea and other people were saying that for years and years and years. Finally, she kind of deleted her channel or whatever. And I'm like, well, maybe her time was up. Maybe it was the end of her license of what she was supposed to do with this whole movement. So now she's coming back. But I think some of these people, and John LeBon hates it, that I think that they're internet shills. And there's a difference between a shill and an internet shill. An internet shill would be somebody that is actually doing something for a cause, so to speak, with intentions or to get money from somebody that they're not actually kind of reporting. They're not actually telling people who they're actually getting paid by. So a Mark Sargent, well, he's kind of out in the open. He was out in the open, always doing these interviews, trying to get all this attention from anyone and everyone that he could. Now, what did he do when Australian company wanted to have him in the video? Well, he got flown out there. He got money for that. And what did he do? Did he make Flat Earth look good? Actually, he had, people pissing or drinking piss or whatever. All these idiots, basically, in a commercial. And he made fun of Flat Earth. What did Flat Earthers do? Was he completely demonized? Was he done with? Was he getting less views all of a sudden? Absolutely not. Because that's the king of Flat Earth. So, to me, for 4+ years, I've been saying this guy's a shill. This guy's a shill. And what did he do? He went over to Australia. He got paid. He came back to live with his mama. So there's no There's no critical thinking in flat Earth. That's what's very interesting.
Okay,
There's no
so
critical thinking.
well,
Go
really
ahead.
quick here, for people who don't know what you're talking about, Mark Sargent took $20,000 to appear in a commercial where he was sandwiched between a plastic surgery accident and a rugby player whose claim to fame is he urinated on his own face. And then right before they show Mark, they have a statue of a child in an adult restroom urinating into a cup which the rugby player drinks from. And then, after the naked child-sized angel urinating into the glass is shown, then Mark Sargent says, "I'm an idiot and I can figure out this app." So that was the commercial, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, anybody who is a critical thinker, okay, he came up with the clues. He did some interviews. He showed up at some of the community conference earther events. And then he did this. Well, I'm going to put my foot in the sand and say that that's probably unacceptable. But to him, he's going to spin it. He's going to say that that's actually going to get to more people to come into flat Earth after the child urinating, the transgender dude, the him, hitting a globe Earth and whatever. Like, that is the people that you're dealing with for the most of flat Earth. As far as flat Earth is concerned, the Penguin Squad, the Penguins are the tip of the spear, the tip of the beak, in my opinion. You guys are coming out with this kind of content. You personally, or you guys, it's a think tank, in my opinion. Some things I just say you're full of shit, dude. But that's okay. That's okay. You probably think I'm full of shit on many things as well. That's okay. But these people are making it an absolute clown festival, a clown show. And for people to just fawn over him, to fly him out to different events, to give him money for this stuff, they are not critical thinkers. They are not people that you should associate with. In my opinion, they're not people who are in it for the truth. That's what we're all here for in the conspiracy crowd, I think, was the truth. Well, in the truth community, we would call people shills. Well, Metabunk.org is a shill. He's getting paid for this shit. He's a shill. We should shut him off. Well, we look at Mark Sargent and this whole thing that you just showed on the screen. That's a shill. Like, I don't understand how you could come to any other conclusion. And this is like number one almost in flat Earth. We look at number two or number one, how you think of it, Eric Dubé and his, and I don't want to say anti-Semitism because that's ridiculous, but his anti-Jew shit, which is going to make you look even stupider and just degrade your conversation with everybody even further. And then you get into the pedos, basically, or the pedo cult of the Flat Earth Society, one of the leaders or the leader or whatever. This is not something that you should back yourself on. I mean, you should almost completely rephrase what you're trying to say, because everybody that's in it is going to make you look fucking terrible at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, and that's the job of the media. The media is trying very hard to make sure that this idea is associated with a bunch of kind of half-assed conspiracy theories. So it's not like, oh, these are critical thinkers who are questioning what they're being shown. They want people to think that the people who question on this level are just crazy. And I think that they're trying to associate us with crazy. So I'm just trying to stick with rationally parsing the facts, or so-called facts, as they're presented to us from the media. I liken what we do to Mystery Science Theater 3000, and we're all just here kind of laughing at the bad science fiction. Like, it's critique, not hate.
How about 2020? Let's make a prediction. 2020 or 2021 will be the year that they try to shut down ideas. Now, they have somewhat on different platforms, but the idea of anything that's anti-mainstream. Let's actually try to make that a criminal offense. And I could see that.
Okay, I'm adding it to the list of predictions, and so this is basically the initiation of thought crime legislation, and that's what they're leading to. If you've noticed, in the last few days, there's been a lot of anti-Semitic attacks, all of them fake, but the reason why they did it, I believe, right now, is they're trying to make it seem like, hey, these conspiracies, some of them are fun, like Flat Earth, but some of them point fingers at other ethnic groups. And they're going to say conspiracy theories are the equivalent of radical ideologies like Islam taken to an extreme. So now we can make the case that we got to get rid of slippery slope conspiracy theories that will cause people to go attack Jews. So I think you're right. I think they're building a case against it right now.
Yeah, and the public perception I think we've seen for quite a while would be lock anyone away. And I actually can't even talk to a lot of my close friends and family about what I think about what Israel's doing or what has happened in the Middle East as far as with the mainstream media. I've learned actually to completely shut off to that, because it's been shown on the right and the left that these are our greatest allies in the Middle East. And other places in the Middle East, like Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, all these people are wanting to cut our heads off because of our freedom. And so they have this nostalgia, I suppose you can say, about this golden country that was stolen, first off. And that can pretty much do anything. That can completely stop on Palestine. That can completely have any kind of propaganda about Hamas or whatever. And Hamas is not the greatest group in the world, but we have to look at certain perspectives. As far as if me and you were brothers and we were born in Afghanistan, let's just say we were 8 years old, and we had all these guys that were in basically alien outfits coming over and taking over our land and killing our parents or our mom or bombing our grandparents or whatever. What is our perspective, subjective perspective on that? Well, these people are the enemy. So we have to understand that this Team America World Police is not conducive to actual peace. It's actually a shit stir at the end of the day. And it will never, never breed peace when we have hundreds of different bases on different countries where, you know, it would be interesting to see North Korea or something have a base here, or any of these other countries have military armed, people here on the United States. That's just not allowed. We can do it all over the fucking world. So,
well, wait. I don't know if you heard my earlier prediction about a space race, because I think they're going to have to decide between American first, capitalism, freedom, and space, or if it's going to be a big commie lockdown before we move on. And North Korea, they said they were going to nuke us on Christmas, and now they're saying New Year's for the nuke. But what do you think of this idea of the space race turning into a space war, because we're actually fighting between communism and kind of capitalism, but basically freedom versus statism? What do you think about the space race turning into a space war in 2020? One of my predictions.
I don't know, man. Like I said before, Russia is supposed to be the meddlers of the 2016 elections. It's just all over the mainstream media. They're trying to impeach Trump, which will continue to when he becomes the president again. Sorry for anyone who hates to hear that, but he will become the president again, and these people will continue to try to impeach him over and over and over again. And at the end of the day, it's just all a farce, man. It's all perpetuated by, perhaps Project Mockingbird from the 40s that supposedly stopped. But you always hear these people, and I don't even watch the mainstream media anymore. They just say, officials say, or a source in the State Department says. That's what they say. There's no accountability. They can say anything that they want, and these people are the biggest puppets that you'll ever see. It's so sickening to me. I haven't even watched them for years and years. I can't watch them. Go to my parents' house and they have Fox News on. I go to the other room. Like, I can't even listen. I'm more, I guess you can say I slant more right than left, for sure. The progressive, liberal side, for sure. I'll stand straight on that. But I'm not for, what the Republicans or the conservative kind of mind state is, because it's all a farce. It completely is. And I'm not sure where it goes, but people are so mind controlled.
Well, you're right about one thing. The people who read the teleprompters don't do any fact checking. So it's all hearsay. Everything in the media is literally hearsay, and that's how I treat it. When I hear of a school shooting, it's usually like this. Fox News says, somebody on Twitter reported retweeting a tweet where somebody said they heard a pop, 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 there might be a shooting. And it's like, man, that is so divorced from direct reporting. And when I see news on, like when I'm around family and Fox or whatever's on or CNN is on, I watch it, but more like morbid curiosity, because the longer I stay away from it, the more alien it seems to me when I actually, see what they're actually doing. And they're way too combative. Have you noticed how combative they are on their debates on TV? Like, even on YouTube, the worst you hear is Nathan Oakley, where it just goes into chaos for a minute, but they still, I think, gain control over it. But on the mainstream media, it's all just circus. I can't even get any sense out of it.
Yeah, I just, dude, I haven't been able to do it for years, because I think at a certain point, some of the penguins and some of the people in the chat probably understand. You can't even watch it and take it seriously, number one. But number two, you see through all the agenda. Like, what they're saying is pure agenda, pure slant. I mean, I watched it a couple years ago where you watch CNN, and then I would be like, oh, that's somewhat convincing. And then I would watch Fox, same subject. Oh, that's somewhat convincing. Now I'm confused. People are picking and choosing. They're cherry picking. They're doing things to make people believe certain ways. And I listen to my parents how they talk. I listen to my family how they talk. I see where their mind is, and I've understood just to not actually contribute, because they don't want to hear about 9/11. We got in a fight a long time ago going to Texas, trying to talk to them about 9/11. It was bad. Just saying actual facts. You can't do it. And then, misconceptions and stuff like that. I've learned to just shut my mouth, mostly with my family. But, people that I meet, and I hear this climate change stuff, and I say, hey, what's your evidence? And I say, hey, I bet you got a hockey stick model for me. I bet you have that. They're like, let me come back to you with some evidence from college that I'm at in my theology of climate science. I think that was this girl I was talking to not too long ago. Like this whole philosophy of climate science. I said, I bet you're going to come back to me with, and I don't want you to, because I'm gonna debunk you on this. Don't come back to me with this hockey stick model. And what is the next thing that she showed me as proof of climate science? It was the fucking hockey stick model, dude.
Oh, I love it. They're still throwing that thing around after all these years. And something came out as a bit of a scandal about 2 months ago. And basically, there was I think it was in Germany, some scientist, climate change denialist, said, hey, look, it happens to be the case that they're making their predictions using a flat atmosphere. So they're looking at the atmosphere and its layers, and they're making their projections, but they're not accounting for the sphericity of the atmosphere around the Earth. So even the climate models that they use to draw their erroneous conclusions don't have that basic fact right. They're basically using a flat Earth map, which makes no sense because it's a enclosed system of a certain size if it's a globe, but they're not accounting for the curved atmosphere. And apparently the curved atmosphere would matter with the way that the heat's distributed, I suppose.
And great chat IPS as usual. I just want to say, anybody in the chat, he's talking obviously about what he's been showing for a while, the mouse or the rat or whatever in space. I want to give the phone line to somebody that will talk about that, and I'll be listening. But great chat as usual, man. Thank you.
Yeah, hey, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. And hopefully your prediction comes true that they're going to ban thought crimes in the future. So have a great one.
Later, bro.
All right. Yeah, I mean, hopefully it comes true, because if we don't ban these thought crimes, if we don't ban hate, we're going to continue to see all these attacks. That's kind of the thinking here. Like, we need to get rid of the bad things. We need to get the bad thoughts, the wrong think, the crime think. It's all 1984. And I do find this interesting that here we are seeing Elon Musk saying, I'm going to Mars in 2020 in the Starship. He's escalating it. China is saying, we're going to Mars 2020. And we're looking at this footage from December 5th, 2019. This is CRS19. This is the 19th out of 20 payloads SpaceX is sending to the ISS. Here we are on the 19th one, and in the original footage, 43 minutes in, you can clearly see a mouse running around this engine. And this thing's in space. There's a mouse. So, yeah, we talked about it. I think we arrived at whatever conclusion we can arrive at. I mean, what can you really say? If you have any opinions on it, please call, but no one here is going to be able to effectively deny that what we're seeing here is, in fact, a mouse. That is a mouse. It calls into question a few things, though, because its size relative to the engine seems a little bit off. But yeah, this is 100% a mouse. But just because it is not supposed to be there doesn't mean that this proves that the Earth is flat under a dome and that we got to go hit the Bibles. It doesn't prove it. Dire Wolf Bear says, you found Mighty Mouse. Oregon D says, what did he say about the mouse? He's a big space buff, but he's coming here trying to claim curvature. Well, it looks like a mouse, and you have to look at it in high def, and look, it has a shadow, and the shadow is very consistent with the lighting. It could be a smudge. You might want to ask Red's Rhetoric. A Call Day 2323 says that mouse is so great. Pippi says ISS has to come down. It's infested. My theory right now, okay, so if I was someone who had never paid any attention to outer space before, and if I thought the Apollo landing was real, I would say, obviously, a communist is working for SpaceX trying to bring down Musk because they want to get to Mars first and plant their communist flag before any American capitalists get there. And so this is meant to discredit SpaceX. That would be one possible explanation. Now, the problem you're going to run into with that is that this mouse is riding CRS19, which delivered the Tang and whatever else to the astronauts. So we ought to let the ISS know. Like, maybe it didn't get in. Maybe the mouse didn't get into the space station, but when they make their second loop 90 minutes later, it could splatter against the window of the cupola. Like, this is an actual threat. They have a mouse, dead or alive, in the orbital path of the ISS going 17,000 miles per hour. Would you want to hit a mouse at 17,000 miles per hour? You go on these road trips, you're going 100 and you hit some of these, bugs, like in June, especially down here. It's just like, they splatter like paintballs. Like, what do you think a mouse is going to do at 17K if it hits the cupola? It could go right through the glass. Could cut right through who knows? I mean, it could do some serious damage. Anyway, it's dangerous in space, and this mouse doesn't even have a spacesuit. Lilith says, shouldn't he be a mouseicle? Yeah, actually, there's the temperature problem here, too. How cold is it up there? So if you just got here, I have a couple of theories about this. I think it might tie into something. So if you look into the SpaceX history, they have a series of high-profile launches that they've done, and one of the things they did was the Tesla Roadster in space. And the Tesla Roadster in space had a "Don't Panic." It's called Starman, but it said "Don't Panic" on the dash. "Don't Panic" is a reference to the movie Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Basically, when the world comes to an end, don't panic. So this was Elon Musk making a little inside joke. Well, I watched the movie, I didn't read the book, but when the movie starts out, you find out that the mice are actually pan-dimensional beings who have created the world, and now they're taking it apart. So the world's coming to an end. That's what's signified. So here you have the narrative. Hey, look, and look, he even talks about this Hitchhiker's Guide in a few instances, Elon Musk. And my point is, if you read the subtext is, the world's coming to an end. Don't panic, go to Mars. That's pretty much the story here. So his Roadster goes to Mars because presumably the world's coming to an end. He's one of the foremost exponents of that idea. He says that Apophis 42999 is going to kill us all. Big rock. Well, 42 figures prominently in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That is the number that the AI, that is God, says is the meaning of life. 42? Whatever the hell that means, right? Well, this summer, there was a blackout in Manhattan on 42nd Street that took out power in 42,000 homes. That took place on the 42nd anniversary of the blackouts in Manhattan of 1977. So this entire year, that number and this book have been kind of written into the metascript. Hey, what's up, caller? What are your thoughts on the Space Mouse?
Actually, I didn't see the video. Is it possible that you could replay it?
Well, I've been playing.
I'm watching it, the screen now.
Okay, so that's the only thing we want to talk about. The main thing is, yeah. So really quick here, what is your opinion on the mouse?
What do you mean? What do you mean the mouse? I just tuned in.
Okay, well, how about this? Why don't you look at the screen right now, mute your speakers.
Yep.
I'm going to give you a chance to watch it live. You only get one view, maybe two views of it, and then tell me what you think of this mouse. And I'm going to have it across the screen. It's in the circle. You can't miss it.
The mouse.
Again, it's in the circle. It walks down, walks around. I'm tracing it with the cursor. Are you able to see it?
Oh, yes. What is that? Oh, my God. No way. Really? Okay, so that's got to be complete. So where did that originate?
Good question. And we'll get to that. But first, you have to agree, though, this does look convincing, right? It does look like a damn mouse.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can clearly see it kind of like running along there.
Okay,
but,
this
I mean,
comes.
This is no doubt that NASA is a complete stage.
Well, this comes from.
I think these are breadcrumbs.
CRS19. This was not NASA. This was this is SpaceX.
SpaceX.
Well, actually, you know what? You're kind of half right. You're kind of half right.
Elon Musk. I do believe it's an awakening. Elon Musk is being initiated into the order. So he's achieving this level of intelligence, right? But at the same time, he's being, introduced to this new echelon of society. And he's now learning maybe space is fake, but he has to play his role or die.
That's your conclusion.